New York's classic rock, Q1043.
Ken Dashow, Q104.3. Ken Dashow's Beatles Revolution on the iHeartRadio app. Joining me is one of the biggest Beatle fans in the world, one of the greatest rock drummers who ever lived, and somebody who's a good friend from Brooklyn, Liberty DeVitto. Welcome.
Hey, Ken. Look, I'm going to give Paul McCartney a call right now and tell him he forgot his bass at your house.
I mean, what kind of a music studio would I have without a Hofner violin bass sitting on the wall?
Got to have the Hofner bass. Got to have it.
So Lib is on here. We're going to talk Beatles. We're going to talk Billy. And we're going to talk his autobiography right now, Liberty. It is one of the best. And it's hard to say this because you know he's my friend. But this is brilliant because it's about the music. But I want to start with a Beatles story that we had. A mutual friend of ours, the great Billy J. Kramer from Liverpool, and Lib plays drums with him whenever he can when he's playing. Well, it was the Mersey Festival some years back, and they asked Billy to come back and play the Cavern Club. And Billy asked me and my wife Jane, like, would you come and introduce me? Like, of course. No, I'll wait for the next time someone asks me to introduce them at the Cavern Club. And Matthew Street, and the fact that it's moved, that I don't care. It's the Cavern Club. And I'm trying to be cool. And to everybody listening, you would be the same as me. I'm trying to be cool. And I'm looking at all the names on the bricks. And there's Paul and George and Billy and Lawrence Juber and everybody that's swinging blue jeans. And Jerry Marsden and everybody, and I'm being cool, and I'm looking at the stage, and I'm just absorbing it. You just feel the energy just going over you. Be cool, be cool. And this gentleman, Liberty DeVitto, comes up to me, grabs me by the shoulders, and you shook me as hard as you could, and you said, "We're playing the Cavern Club!"
Yeah, I remember it well. That was so exciting, you know, to go with Billy J. Kramer, who had played it himself, and pointing out different places, you know, oh, it was bigger at this time or smaller at this time. And just to hear it from Billy, what it sounded like, you know, if there was a fire in the place.
They were dead. They were dead. Yeah. It was a glorified ladder going to a bomb shelter and everybody smoking. He said the walls were dripping wet from sweat and smoke. You were just suffocating. And the energy couldn't be matched, but it was crazy. And just playing there, like you said, the funniest thing, when Lib plays, you played the Iridium once, and you asked me, I haven't played there, what's the drum kit like? And I said to you, it doesn't matter. When you're finished with it, you'll destroy it. Because there's not a lot of softness and shimmers in Lib's playing. If you want a rock drummer, that guy right there with the hat, that's the guy you want. When Billy finished the show, his brother came up to Billy and I and said, sounded like a bloody heavy metal concert. And Billy J said to his brother, Ronnie, he goes, you forgot what rock and roll sounds like.
Yeah, there you go. You know, just the excitement, Ken. Remember, just walking down that staircase into the cavern, you know, like you said, even though it is a couple of feet from where the real one was, it's there. It's there, and you can feel that vibe of going down there on lunch break, and the excitement that the kids had to see this band that was doing cover tunes from America, but killing it. You know, it was great.
When we did, Lib and I and Billy J, we all got a tour of John Lennon's house at Menlove Avenue. And to everybody listening, that you want to make a trip. I mean, the islands are great. I love to go in the islands, but if you're a music fan or a Beatles fan, do not miss on this time on Earth going to Liverpool. It will open up again by next year, we hope. Don't miss that trip, because being at Menlove Avenue, I remember, we've been to museums. Lib's gone to a lot of museums around the world, so have I. Sitting in that bedroom, I just remember the two of us just looking at each other like, I can't believe we're here. Can't believe we're here.
The posters on the wall, everything that it was like when John was a kid, and the fact
the wind.
That, what was it? I Call Your Name. He wrote it in that bedroom.
Just that little window seat. So I mean, Liverpool has changed, and now it used to be dangerous all the way in the 70s, And now it's the center of European culture, and they've got a beautiful outdoor mall. And the docks are now fancy and beautiful where they used to be dangerous. Mr. DeVitto and I grew up on a planet called Brooklyn. And when we grew up there were no fair trade, free trade coffee houses serving flaxseed hemp muffins. There was not one of those to find.
No, deli coffee. Deli coffee and a muffin that was the size of your head.
Hey, Mr. DeVitto, how you take that coffee? Regular? You take a regular?
Yeah, give me 2 coffees, a regular. Give the other one with extra sugar. Just make it sweet.
I keep trying to teach my friends from England, Annie and Ralph, I stay with in London. They live right on Abbey Road, like right at the next zebra crossing. They're in the background of the picture. And I've been trying to teach them how to say, not for nothing. And they can't get their tongues around it. It doesn't, it sounds like they had a stroke. Not for nothing. Or it comes out, not for nothing. Like, no, before you insult someone or say something bad, you preface it with, hey, not for nothing, but your sister got fat.
Right.
Hey, I'm just saying. Right.
It's kind of like, with all due respect, before you say
Exactly.
Ken, I have a 3-year-old, right? She's a Beatles herself. She knows the words to all the Beatles songs. And I tell her, for breakfast, we're having some fruit. We're having raspberries. And I say to her, how would the Beatles say this? And she says, raspberries.
Lib, I'm telling you, I've been doing breakfast with the Beatles now, I don't know, 18, 20 years, something like that. As many children listen and make requests. Every parent says the same thing. The first thing, my kid didn't care about music. He asked for, out of the blue, he asked for a guitar. He asked for a drum set. He listens to, just like you and I got turned on to it. It's this thing that never ends. And only the Beatles are the greatest rock band that also wrote children's songs to walk people into it.
Yes, and my daughter's first favorite song was Yellow Submarine.
Of course it was.
And then it was next one.
Yellow Submarine. I mean, all together now it's a children's song. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it brings people in. One of the wildest things, and this hasn't happened once, I mean 20, 30 times, where I get an email from someone saying, Ken, my son is 8 years old. He's on the spectrum. He's terribly low functioning. He's nonverbal. He lives in this fog of a world that he's spinning. He can't focus. And out of the blue, we were driving along. I had the Beatles on. Yellow Submarine was playing, and he just started singing Yellow Submarine. He had never uttered a word, and we almost drove off the road. And I swear, someday scientists will find out that there's a frequency pattern or something that they just innately had that cuts through into your mind.
It is all about melody, isn't it? And that catchy melody that they had, those chord changes that they put together, that just sucked you in and kept you for a ride of 2.5 minutes,
Right. Every chord, every sound, whatever it does, it's in your head and you can't lose it. We keep celebrating these 50th anniversaries of Sgt. Pepper's in '67. This year, the 50th anniversary of Let It Be. And what I keep thinking about is, imagine in '67, if the big thing on the radio was like a re-release of Rudy Valley singing My Time Is Your Time. It couldn't have happened. You wouldn't go back 50 years. Every generation has their pop stars, right? Every generation has, it was Rudy Valley in the 20s, or Bing Crosby then. And then it was Sinatra. And Sinatra was threatened by Elvis Presley. And Elvis Presley was threatened by the Beatles. And since then, nobody's knocked off the Beatles. There's always pop music. Every generation has their pop star, whether it's New Kids on the Block or Backstreet Boys, or now it's the Korean bands, the K-pop bands. But none of them ever write Eleanor Rigby 2 years into their career.
No, and their arrangements and everything. Like a song like A Little Help from My Friends, that drum fill that Ringo does after that first verse, you cannot play something different there. You have to play that tom-tom fill that he does on those 2 toms. It's like, if you change that tom-tom fill, you might as well change the chord to the song. Right. That's how well that fits that part. It's just amazing, the things that they did. They were so thought out. It was unbelievable, their parts.
And I will say you did the exact same thing for Billy Joel, for all of these albums that we play to this day, and they're going to be played forever because of the quality of the songs. This book, Liberty, talking about music, his growing up, and playing with Billy Joel. It's out. It's not in the bookstores yet, but we can get it at hudsonmusic.com and on Amazon. We can pre-order. And a little bird told me the pre-orders are sold out so far. They have to do a second printing before it's released.
Yes, there's a first printing hit sold out. Yep.
Lib, you can't do better than that. That's awesome. That's great. But you go into the thing. Truly, the thing I love most about this book, the sex and drugs part of the story, like, it just bores me. It's not that I'm old. Like, I figured that part. How the songs came together. That's what I love in a book about music where the songs are iconic. That's the thing. Jeff Emmerich's book about recording the Beatles. That's
Right.
my Beatles Bible of how these songs came together. And that's what you do here. Sitting on the drum kit. And, I'm an amateur drummer. I'm just good enough to know how bad I am. But the couple of times when I've played Beatles songs, or, once during the live Breakfast of the Beatles, our friend Billy Amendola from Modern Drummer and twisted my arm. You got to play a song. You got to play a song. You got to play a song. I'm doing a live radio show. You got to. And I picked Lovely Rita because I thought I could do that. But just what you said on the fill, on the break, it's not fast. It's not cross-handed or complicated.
No.
Just bump, boom, bump, 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 bump. That's it. If you fuck that up, the whole world knows, oh, he can't play it.
Right.
It's just that.
Right. It's the song like Come Together, the brilliant tom-tom work that's in the beginning in the verse.
I mean, do you think, and I've asked every drummer this, and they've all given me the same answer, is Ringo truly one of the great drummers you ever heard?
Yes, he is. He is definitely one of the greatest drummers I have ever heard. He's the most creative drummer that I have ever heard on a record. Because just an example, which most people overlook this tune, one of my favorite tunes is No Reply. The way he builds into the chorus of the song, you can feel the passion that how John is singing the song to this girl who just crushed him. And Ringo plays and brings it to that point of like, wow, this guy is almost like yelling and pleading with this girl. Like, if I were you, I'd realize, and Ringo on his drums drives that home.
There's that when John screams, I nearly died, and Ringo just, he explodes on his screen. And it makes you jump. I mean, playing as loud as you can all the time never sounds loud to me. The Who, every song has the most soft, beautiful ballad in it. Behind Blue Eyes, is it a ballad or a rocker? Everything changes tempo, and that's so much of what the Beatles did. And he just had a feel. What Danny Gottlieb always said to me, my brother from another mother, said, I was playing all this jazz stuff and learned fast and all these tricks, and then you realize it's just showing off, really. Just serve the song. Just your job is to serve the song.
Well, it's funny when you just said, I nearly died, you actually went like this, I nearly died. Like you would do that if you were telling somebody that. I died,
Right. The other day on Breakfast with the Beatles, I played, it was Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Great.
How do you transition from the verse to the chorus? Doom, doom, doom. Lucy, just 3 shots on the floor, Tom. And you sit there and go, there's nothing else you could play. That's the only sound I could imagine.
Yeah.
Could it be any simpler?
One of my favorite fills that Ringo does is at the end of that song when he goes, Lucy in the sky with diamonds. And he just goes, ba, 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 Lucy in the sky. That's all he does. It's amazing. It's like, wow, would I have done that? I don't think so. I don't know. It's so simple that it's amazing.
Again, going back to Liberty, Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness. That's a great, great subtitle to this. And these songs are iconic. We never stop playing them. And we don't, people say, why do you play so much Billy Joel? It's a rock station. Like, well, why do you think we do? Because we love it, because this audience loves it. There's new audience that wants to hear it. These albums are tremendous. When did you first meet Billy in life?
In life, I first met Billy when I was 17 years old. We both played in a club called the My House in Plainview, Long Island. And he was in the Hassles and I was in the New Rock Workshop. In the book, there's a ticket that you use to get in, and it says Hassles and New Rock Workshop together tonight. But we used to just say hi when we passed in the dark, and that's all we knew. So when it was time for Billy to find a new drummer, when he was moving back from California, it made it easy for Doug to say, you know the guy, because he
Dougie
knew.
Stegmeyer.
Yeah. And Billy, he told Billy, he says, you know the guy that should play the drums, because he had seen me play and I had watched him, so we knew about each other.
There's a big parallel to that with Ringo and Rory Storm and the Hurricanes,
right?
And the Beatles. Like, we know that guy. He was amazing. We saw him with the other band.
Right. That's your in right there. You never know who's watching.
Exactly. When you first got into the band, when you started playing with them and writing, did you see it as something that was going to be this iconic mainstay staple of music for as long as you know? Or did you think, well, this will be good for a few years?
Well, when I first saw, when Doug said, come down and see us play, it was in Staten Island somewhere. They played at some college in Staten Island. And I went to see them play. And Doug had told me about this Billy mania that was going on. And he says, all he does is play the beginning notes to Piano Man, and people go crazy. And I didn't even know that there was beginning notes to Piano Man. I just knew this single, which just started with the harmonica. So as soon as I hear this, and people go nuts, I said, okay, this could be really cool. I'll get this gig and we'll see where it takes us. I mean, we didn't know. Who knew that it was going to become what it became? And what it became, I have to say, Ken, is all because of people like you and Maria and playing those songs and keeping them alive. I mean, I went to a rehearsal when the Lords of 52nd Street got inducted into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. And I was riding with my friends and I said, oh man, I should have probably listened to Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. I got an idea. Let me turn on Q. I turned it on and 2 songs later, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant came on. And I said, oh, that's how it goes. Okay, I got it.
The stories live forever. Whether there are people who are born into stories that will live forever, that are Jack and Diane for John Mellencamp, yeah. Roxanne, who's the eternal prostitute, for the Police, and the story of Brenda and Eddie, which applies. Yes, he made it local to Long Island, but all through the Western world, all through Europe, there's a Brenda and Eddie who try to make it, and it doesn't quite work out. And your friends say, well, we didn't think it would work, but we wish you well. It's such a universal and honest, sincere thing. We saved we got some furniture from Sears, and we didn't count on the tears, and we tried, but we screwed it up. So much of that is universal, and iconic albums. We get to like 52nd Street. They're all tremendous, but 52nd Street is just the most honest songwriting I ever heard. And when it comes, the thing is, some people sort of isolate, but I get a sense in this book that there was a lot of contributions made, that the band, Billy was open to contributions, and you had a way of verbally sort of moving stories along and getting some writing in.
Well, with the honesty, he had the music and he was humming just like the melody. And so I need words. I need to know what I'm playing to. That's where my heart lies, is in the lyrics to the songs. And so I had to make up my own lyrics. And to honestly,
go ahead.
I started to sing "Star to Me." It's such a lonely word. And he was like, "Okay, stop." okay, I have to go home and write lyrics to this now, you know. So I kind of forced him into writing the lyrics to Auntie. You know, My Life, I started to sing something to him in the beginning when it goes da 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 da, that I really couldn't write in the book, and I can't say on your webcast yet because it was filthy. But he looked at me after that and he said, "I can never write lyrics to that part again." And up to the very end of us playing together, he used to look at me from the piano and kind of mouth those words that I told him that day.
But you know, it's funny. What the line that I read in the book that it was really interesting. That sooner or later, you know, you have to be okay to wake up with yourself. That one line in My Life, and yeah. You had come up. You was like sort of spontaneous, right? You came up with.
Yeah, we were standing there, and he's thinking. He's going. Let's see. You sleep in your own place.
Sooner or later, you have to sleep in your own bed, right?
And then I said, either way, it's okay. You wake up with yourself. And he went, okay, that's good, and walked away. You know? But I mean, that's the exchange that we had. Even with Phil Ramone in the song "My Life," you know, it's got the straight bass drum in the beginning. And I told Phil, because disco was still big at the time we were doing that record, and I told Phil, I'm not playing that crap beat. I'm not playing it. He took something what he had in his hand, he slammed it on the board, and he looked at me and he said, "You've been in this business for 20 minutes, and you're going to tell me what you're not going to play?" And you know, it's funny because, you know, Phil added a lot too, just like the other guys in the band, you know, added a lot.
It's really interesting when you think of, there was this model of how music got made, the Wrecking Crew in LA, the New York studio cats, you know, Abbey Road had their guys, you know, Jimmy Page playing on every middle, you know, early to middle English record, being a guitarist. Rick Wakeman was the keyboard guy for every record. Right. And, you know, here comes Billy, and I know they wanted to get professional musicians. And I believe Billy was the one who said, we record my guys, because this is how I want the music to sound. I don't want it to sound perfect. I want it to sound like us.
Right.
And that was, to me, for the Beatles to record their own music. Not be, you know, it only happened once on the first song when George Martin brought Andy White in on Love Me Do, because he didn't know if Ringo could play. But after that, the Beatles wrote, played music, and recorded their own music. Would Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band have sounded any better if you brought in total pros? That you could always get a more better drummer than Max, a better guitarist than Stephen, a better bass player, but it wouldn't sound like the E Street Band.
No, it wouldn't. And yeah, you're right. You know, Ringo was nervous in the beginning. It says in one of those books that he was very nervous and he kind of blew his shot in the studio that day. And I get it. Man, you're under a lot of pressure when you go in there and you're a young guy. And here they are. They wore white coats. Imagine they look like doctors, not like engineers and stuff like that. I would have been, you know, pooping in my pants being in that situation.
God. So tell me, what was the first time you went into a big time recording studio with Billy Joel? When was it, and were you scared shitless?
Well, the great thing was that the first time when we did Turnstiles, we went into Ultrasonic Studios on Long Island, where the Vanilla Fudge recorded. A lot of people recorded there. Shadow Morton recorded a lot of stuff there in the 60s. And so it was just us, because Billy, now doing Turnstiles, had fired Jim Guercio, who was going to produce it, and decided he was going to produce it himself, Billy. And so it was just me, Doug, and Billy in there, with Brian Ruggles consulting, you know, being behind the glass and saying, yeah, that was really good, or no, you should do it again. And the engineer. So we were amongst friends, so there really wasn't any nerve-wracking going on, you know, and it was a lot of fun to do that. When we went in the studio with Phil Ramone, he has a list a mile long of people who he produced: Paul Simon, Frank Sinatra, you know, all these great people. And that was a little bit nerve-wracking, like, oh my God. It wasn't until Phil hung out with us for a little while and we realized, wow, this guy is so normal. You know, he joked with us. We had a lot of laughs, and we felt really comfortable. So we eventually called him Uncle Phil because he made us feel so comfortable.
That's what a great producer does. You
Yeah.
know, it's make you feel comfortable. And you know, I got to Russ Titleman is a friend. I know you've met him
Yeah.
many times. He's always been around. And I said that to him, like, when you're producing Eric Clapton and James Taylor and George Harrison, you know, yeah, you have credits of producing albums, but when these are giants who've recorded some of the greatest music ever, are you intimidated by it? And he said, not really. You just, you know, you're there to give your opinion. You're there to arrange things. And if you feel a song isn't finished, it's your job to tell them. It's not your job to tell them they're great. They should know that by now. Your job is to make them feel comfortable and to trust you enough to say, I think we can do better, and for them to believe you.
Right. And I had the opportunity to do it with Billy many times. You know, like he would call me up on the telephone and sing a song that he's writing, and I'd go, "That's okay," and he'd go, "I knew you were going to say that."
But you need somebody like that. You know, the one thing I've always felt, and feel free to disagree with me, Paul has searched his whole life for John Lennon. Not in terms of like a guy who's that creative, because there is only one John Lennon, but a guy he could completely trust to tell him that's crap, or go back, you know, because he could come to him and John would go, that's crap. Yeah, okay. Or when he had, you know, the melody he was playing yesterday, what is that? What is that? And John screams at him, well, you go home and put some words to that.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay. And John could do it too, going back and forth, that give and take. Think about, you know, Mick Jagger without Keith doing the solo albums. They're the greatest musicians you could find, and songs are polished. It doesn't have the thing. It's missing that thing.
Exactly, and that's where Billy was so unique, because he wrote the songs himself, music and lyrics. Only help he ever had was with Cyndi Lauper doing Code of Silence on the Bridge album.
Right.
You know, so I mean, Billy's unique. Elton has Bernie writing the words. You know, John and Paul were together, and like you said, you know, it's a crazy world.
I mean, it's, you know, Paul always points out, he sings, you know, Paul says, hey, check this out, getting better all the time, better, 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 and John just says, couldn't get much worse. Right. Because he said, I never would have thought of that. Yeah. That's what John has to say, that I could never have thought of that line, and that's exactly the line that's needed.
Right. How about I'll buy you a diamond ring? Well, I thought maybe you could drive my car. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's now the flip side, and one of the things that you're very honest about in this book, Liberty, again, I love it. Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness. And you've gone through it all. I mean, Liv's story is starting this band, a rock band that took him to the Soviet Union, took you to Russia, took you to Cuba, across the entire Western world, personal demons, falling out with Billy, an explosion of the friendship, and what nobody ever gets, what almost never happens, that hurts my heart, is that in this book, the foreword to this book is written by Billy Joel.
Yeah.
And even though John and Paul had their moments where they were together again, with John's life was cut short, because it would be impossible to me to think if they were both alive, they wouldn't have been friends and they wouldn't have written some songs together. Not that they wouldn't have put the Beatles together, but two guys who were that talented, who were that close for so long, I absolutely believe they would have found a way to work together, because it was just too easy to be in the room and make music. They loved it.
Yeah, I think Keith and Mick are still together, even though they have, you know, in Keith's book, he talks about how much he can't stand Mick Jagger, but they can't be apart. You know, they're like a married couple that know that if they leave each other, they're going to fall apart. They're not going to make it. You know.
To me, Keith is like the Oscar Wilde of rock and roll with his bon mots. And one of my favorite lines that he's ever said, he said, whenever he gets rid of one of them, they always come round to my flat for tea and sympathy and there. But what I'm really thinking is, What are you crying about? You get to leave. I can't go. Where are we going? We're the Stones.
Yeah, you can't. They can't. They can't. So getting the friendship back together again. You know, the older you get, hopefully the more mature you get. I looked at my life, why I did things the way I did them. I looked at Billy, and I tried to put my head like put myself in Billy's position when he had to make certain decisions, and I understood why he did what he did. At the moment when it happens, you're like, "What the hell are you doing, man? What are you, dumb? You know, what are you?" No, it's like he had reason. This guy was so under the gun all the time. His name is on the marquee, you know, Madison Square Garden. It says Billy Joel tonight. It doesn't say Liberty DeVitto tonight. He's writing 12 to 14 songs for a new album. At least 4 of them have to be great to be singles, you know, and he's playing piano and he's singing. And the weight is all on his shoulders. So when he makes a decision, it's not on my shoulder. I see it totally different than he does. But I was able to look at it from his point of view, you know, and I thought, this feud has to be over. When the Lords played the Rock and Roll Long Island Music Hall of Fame, we were supposed to do 1 song. We did 4 songs, and the crowd went crazy. And like playing with the Lords now, I go back and I remember the songs in the studio, and I remember what fun we had and the great music we made. A friend of mine said that if you guys didn't get back together, it would have been really sad for us fans to think that it broke up like that, you know? So it's great to have him back in my life. I love it.
Was it a tough moment, to that one moment when you're going to reach out and say, okay, here we go. I'm going to reach out and say hello?
I was laying on my bed and I said, you know, I wrote him an email, and I sent it to his person in his office. I said, look, I don't have his email. I'm writing this letter saying that the feud should be over. And if you feel comfortable doing this, could you send this to Billy? The next day, an email came back, and it was like, hey, Lib, you know, I was a little disappointed of the way it ended too. Yeah, I'd love to meet up and have coffee or this, you know, and just talk about things, you know. And when we got together, we didn't talk about the bad stuff. It was all the good, you know, the good times we had, the children we have now, you know, what our kids have done, who's sick, who we lost, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's the way it's been since then. It's all things like that.
I'm so proud of you for reaching out and doing it. It's the hardest thing. And, you know, Lib from an Italian family, our friend Maria Melito, me, Jewish, we have these like blood feuds over nothing in families, where
Right.
family members don't talk to their graves and they only talk at the funeral. And it always seems so stupid. You know, I had an aunt who would call me all the time to ask how her grandson is doing. How's Keith? I'd say, you want his number? He has my number. Like,
Right.
You're 85 years old. You can just, what do you do? Just call. You know, it's as human as a family, because when you're together like that, something that Lib and I talked about, Beatles, like living together, sleeping together every minute of the day. You know, money for nothing and your chicks for free, like the song says, like Mark Knopfler. No, you have no idea the pressure, as Lib just explained, the touring pressure of traveling every minute of every day. You don't get to go home from the office and talk to your wife and kids. You don't get to leave your wife and kids and go to the office. This is your family. This is your workplace. This is everything, is this small group. And Peter Asher, who said, you know, that he and Gordon were school friends since they were 14. Because they didn't talk for 25 years. He said, if you just eat each other alive, you can't help it.
You do. And you know what? When that's eating at you for those 25 years or 15 years, however long it was for me, you know, like Don Henley said, in the heart of the matter, it's going to eat you alive. You're the only one that's suffering from it, you know, from holding that anger in or holding that hatred in, you know, that, and it was eating me out. I couldn't listen to the songs for the longest time, and it was just terrible. And so now, it's like, yes, it was a beautiful time that we had together. It was a beautiful time. And the whole thing about what happened was there's so many people, when something happens and somebody goes to say something to Billy, there's so many other people that are involved in that situation. If Billy doesn't come to me and say, is this true? He'll never know if it was true or a lie, and I'll never know what was said. So that's what the separation was. We never found out why I wasn't there anymore, and he never told me what happened, and I never heard what happened. And then finally, when I finally heard what happened, I was like, no, that never happened. You know, it was like, I could have been there all this time, you know.
It's just when it goes through the filter of all these people with their own agendas.
Yes, exactly, with their own agendas. Who wants to be first? You know, I mean, I was the only one that was there for all those years. I was the last one. I was the only connection to the records. You know, nobody's connected to the records anymore. You know, so everybody wants to take that place. You know, they want to be at the top of the heap.
Right. Well, because it's a very profitable business. It's a multi-million-dollar company called Billy Joel. Right. And you have to think of it as a workplace with people having their own agendas. They want to be in charge of this department or that department and keep on going. And, you know, there's money involved. I have a friend who's a wonderful jazz artist, Jackie Naylor, based in San Francisco. And she said, you know, when we were just playing for beer and money, and, you know, our band, we got along great. We traveled everywhere. You know, the guys were hoping to, you know, get laid and get some free beer. And I was just hoping to like build my brand and stuff. You know, as soon as we got a record deal, everything changed. Suddenly, Herschel was like, well, you know, I wrote the bridge for that song. My name should really be, you know, and everything just blew it. All those friendships blew up in an instant. It was just me and my music director were the only ones who saw the big picture. And I said, do we have to let the other three guys go? He's like, oh yeah, we do.
Yeah,
like, and it's like, but it turned in an instant. As soon as there was $1 to be earned, goes, we exploded. The whole thing died.
Right. I do these drum clinics, and there's young kids, like they're musicians and they want to be in a band. And I say, you know, what do you think? And oh, I don't really care about money or anything like that. I just want to play my music. I said, you got to think about that stuff, because you get that record deal, things are going to change. You're absolutely right about that, Ken.
Everybody said that the smartest thing these two kids who knew nothing about the music business ever did was make a handshake agreement that no matter who writes what, the songs will be written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. And they saved themselves $1 billion in legal fees just by agreeing to that.
That's right. That's right. And that's an amazing thing to do. I mean, like U2, they all split everything. The publishing, everything is split between 4 guys and their manager. And it's kept them together all these years.
So you guys out there starting a band, whatever you're doing, listen to Uncle Lib. Even if it's on the back of a wet, you know, carton of beer, just write out the name of the band, who's in the band, what the deal is. If you write songs, is everybody splitting it? Is 2 people, you know, do it at the beginning. It'll save you a lot of hassle, God willing, later.
That's right. And don't be afraid to spend $1,000 on a lawyer.
Amen to that. So the book, Liberty, Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness, which he found. And Lib's gone through hell and back and lived to tell the tale. HudsonMusic.com. You can get it now, or on Amazon. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be huge. I love the pictures in it of the days of touring. But I have one last question.
Yeah.
You recorded with a gentleman by the name of Paul McCartney. You played drums for
who?
You played drums. Again, let me make sure I'm clear that the connection, my audio is clear. You, Liberty DeVitto, played drums for Paul McCartney on a recording.
Yes, yes. The song was, there was 2 songs actually, Beautiful Night, and another one was called Some Boats. And the song is actually going to come out, I think, on his new record.
On Flaming Pie.
Flaming Pie. Because there's a thing called Zubu, what is it called?
I don't have it.
Ubu Jubu or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's the evolution of the song of Beautiful Night. And it starts with Paul on the piano, and then it eventually gets to me playing drums, and then Ringo doing it, or the same song with Paul, which is really strange to read when you read credits, it's like on piano and vocal, Paul McCartney. On drums, Ringo Starr. On piano and vocal, Paul McCartney. On drums, Liberty DeVitto. It's like, wow, that's like one of the coolest moments I ever saw in my life was that those credits, you know, for Ringo and me in the same section there. But,
were you in the room with it? Were you recording with the room or on a track?
No, in the room. Paul was on the piano, sitting right there. I got some great pictures. I got a real close-up of Paul looking at me, like, you know, in the book, there's a picture of Paul and us, you know.
Talk to me. Yeah, talk to me. Tell me. What was the moment? Tell me.
The moment, you know, I'll tell you what, he was the greatest guy in the world. Let me tell you something. When he walked in the room, I thought, what does this guy want with me? You know, he doesn't know who I am. Linda walked in the room first, and she pointed right at me, and she goes, oh, I know who you are. We've been watching your videos. I'm like, what? You've been watching our videos? And then he walked in the room, and, you know, it's like, I think he was like 3 feet off the ground. His feet never touched the ground, you know. And when I shook his hand to meet him, I go, hi, Paul. It's nice to meet you. I'm Liberty, blah, blah, blah. And then he turned to talk to someone else, and I backed out of the studio. And I went to the hallway, and I said, okay, you've got to settle down. Get a grip. Get a grip. He's just another musician like you are. No, he's not.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
He's a Beatle. But then it was fun. It became fun because you know what's really weird, and I'm sure you've had this experience when you're interviewing like your idols and stuff like that, that people you listen to all your life. When I'm playing the drums and I'm hearing this voice that's so familiar coming through the headphones, and I look over and it's the guy. He's sitting right there. He's sitting right there. And then in between the songs, we're playing like Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard, and he's singing, you know, just having a ball. During the break, we had pizza, and we just talked about children, what it was like having kids, you know? It was just a regular day with a regular guy.
Who happens to be Paul McCartney.
Yeah, from the Beatles, yeah.
Right. That's a perfect story, Liv. Thank you so much for sharing it. And thanks for sharing it in the book. One more time, Liberty, it is a journey and a life that we can all relate to. Life, Billy, and the pursuit of happiness. It's a great gift to anybody who loves music. It's not just about whether you love Billy Joel or the Beatles, and you do, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this. Right. But thanks for taking us inside the music. It's great. Good luck, success with this. Many, many more.
Well, thank you, Ken, and thank you, Q, for keeping us alive.
Amen to that.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.